Hey guys, today's story is going to be about a player who makes cheesy characters. This is not a horror story about a single event, more a series of underhanded moves performed by a particularly problematic player. So this player is out of character, an alright guy. Sure, he likes the prequel movies and unironically thinks that The Last Jedi was a good film, but other than that, he's pretty cool. He's also the one who first got me into D&D, and in-game he's a perfectly functional, if slightly unengaged, player. But, my god, his characters. He has a habit, this man, of making his characters as game-breaking and overpowered as possible. And the worst part is, he doesn't even do this through the traditional methods. Like studying the game like a science until you can break it like a kobold's spine. And what I mean is he just flat out cheats. One of our first proper campaigns in our group was ran by me, and he showed up with a Goliath barbarian holding a mysterious black bag that he refused to explain the contents of. Not even I had any idea what was in it, which was a huge red flag as I am now aware. But at the time, I thought nothing of it. This was my first campaign as a DM, and I didn't notice the signs. Poor me. Everything was fine until about 2 sessions in. The party was on a ship that got boarded by pirates during a storm, and they had to fight the pirates off while the ship tossed and turned, and the rain threatened to throw the characters off the deck. Nice, if slightly unoriginal, if I do say so myself. The rest of the party gets stuck in. The wizard casted magic missile on some pirates attacking the captain, the battlemaster fighter ran to assist the struggling allied guards, and the rogue single-handedly fended off the reinforcements. And then it came to the problem player's turn. And this is what he said.
I point at the deck of their ship, and a cat leaps out of my bag. It jumps off the deck of our ship and in midair turns into a massive boulder, and it smashes into the deck of their ship and sinks it.
After this, there was a dead silence from the table. I blink and ask him to, in the nicest possible way, explain what the buttered fudge crumpet he was talking about.
I tell my mimic to turn into a boulder and sink the enemy ship.
You don't have a mimic.
Yes, I do. It's in the bag. I didn't tell you because I wanted it to be a surprise.
I was in shock. Another member of the party, who was an experienced DM, looked at me like Monty Burns looks at his hounds. He was waiting for me to tear Pee-Pee a new one. And, ladies and gentlemen, what did I say? Okay, the ship sinks. New round. Wizard, what's your action? I was new, guys. I'm better than that now. We kind of ignored it and moved on. Though I caught the experienced player staring daggers at me the whole rest of the night. In hindsight, I now know why, and I totally understand it. In fact, if I'd been there today, I'd have been doing it right alongside with him. For the next few weeks, the problem player relied heavily on the mimic, right up until that campaign ended not long after. And that was the end. Or it would be, but, like John Tron himself once said, it doesn't end there. Within a week, he was back at it. The next few incidents were rather small things, such as giving himself homebrew items, or abilities that he relied incessantly upon, and which tended to break the game. But they were relatively minor things that didn't compare to what happened next. So we ended up playing Storm King's Thunder, and I was the DM again. The party get to a pretty pivotal fight between a doppelganger impersonating a dwarven king and his assassin bodyguards. The problem player was playing a Warforged, and was remarkably cagey about his backstory. His character got duffed up pretty bad. But the fight was almost over, and I was starting to think that I may just be able to salvage this, as I absolutely hate killing player characters. But then he said something that made my blood run cold.
Oh, well, dang, you guys might not survive this, but Well, I'm going to get out my mech suit and fight on foot.
Again, there was the trademark dead silence as he proceeded to take out of his bag a second character sheet, complete with completely different abilities, class levels, and health. He essentially switched characters right in the heat of battle to one that had more health. It turns out he was actually playing a gnome that was driving a mech suit. Now, this actually sounds to me like an awesome idea, and I would have been happy to let it go, though probably with some serious debuffs to the gnome, provided he had actually expressed the idea to me beforehand. But no, he tried to slip it past me for the same reason he tried to slip the mimic past me, because he knew I would have disallowed it, or at least seriously penalized it. And he wasn't willing to sacrifice even a portion of his utterly broken build. From here, it only got worse. He made a gunslinger character for a Waterdeep game I ran, complete with several guns and ammo to burn. When I told him to take them out since I hate guns in fantasy games on principle, he argued with me and demanded I let him keep them. For a game that another friend ran, he had his character carry around these kegs of homebrew liquor that would instantly incapacitate anyone who drank it, unless they made a very high DC saving throw, which was a 20 to avoid intoxication and a 15 to stay conscious but have disadvantage on all rolls for 24 hours. Then he'd just RP every monster into drinking it, which that DM was something of a pushover and didn't want to upset him. So he was able to basically win every fight without actually trying. The most recent, really egregious example of this was back when the aforementioned pushover DM was preparing that campaign. He mentioned offhandedly to me one day that he had to download the UA and read about a class that PP wanted to play. My friends, the alarm bells that went off in my head were louder than the bells of Jerusalem. I demanded to see the class that he wanted to play. It was a barbarian subclass that was the most unbelievably OP thing I had ever seen in the official rules. Not since the AD&D Cavalier have I seen the unearthed arcana so perfectly meet their reputation. This subclass was a monster. They could cast spells almost as good as any cleric, cast a spell and attack on the same turn, had a bunch of combat abilities, and my personal favorite, an ability that let them touch a person, including themselves, and cause them to instantly regain a spell slot of up to 4th level. The limit? None. The cost? A minuscule amount of damage that the smallest health potion would render negligible. But it got worse. The problem player wanted his barbarian to roll on the wild magic table every time his character attacked, cast a spell, or used an item. And he didn't want to use the one in the rules. Oh no, siree, no. He wanted to homebrew his own one. And Pushover DM, being a relative newbie, almost fell into the same trap I had during my early days. And I would not have it. I went to town on this. It was like the scene in every coming-of-age story where the bullied kid finally stands up for himself. For 5 minutes, I waded into battle, explaining to the DM just what PP wanted, exactly why he was doing what he was doing, and precisely what he hoped to gain from it. I explained all the rules he was breaking, and why they were there, and I listed in great detail his reputation and the amount of times he'd done this before. And by the end, man, I felt awesome. This has been most of his incidents so far, and the only thing I've neglected to mention were his stats. Every character he plays, without fail, has at least one 18 and several 16s or 17s. I don't mention them though, because I can't prove he's fudging rules, and he vehemently denies it when confronted. Most people would just say he's a jerk player, but I disagree. For that to be the case, there has to be actual malice behind the decision, and I don't get that feel from him. He isn't a bad person or a bad player. He just really, really wants to play memorable and unique characters. But because he doesn't engage in roleplay or characterization, he has to do it by cheating at the rules. His faults at being a DM, though, are much harder to excuse. But we'll get to those in another post if you guys would like to hear it. And indeed, there is a second post. So, you guys should swing by Artificial DM's channel and check out part 2. But in any case, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. And if you have a story that you'd like me to narrate, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, and have a good one.